Okay, this is the article number 2 of day 1. What would happen if you stuck your body inside a particle accelerator? ठीक है, ये क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है क्या होगा अगर तुम पार्टिकल एक्सेलरेटर कोई चीज होती होगी, इसको लेट एक्स मान लेते हैं हम। इसके अंदर हमारी बॉडी फंस जाएगी तो क्या होगा? The scenario seems like the start of a bad Marvel comic. The scenario seems the scenario seems ये scenario दिखा दिया है शायद इसके बाद the scenario seems like the start of a bad Marvel comic है, but it happens to shed light on our intuitions about radiation. The vulnerability of the human body and the very nature of matter. Intuitions about radiation, the vulnerability of the human body and the very nature of matter. ठीक है, ये मतलब ऐसा लग रहा होगा इस सिनेरियो को देख के कि इसे कॉमिक का पार्ट है, बट इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट इट बिकॉज इट शेड लाइट्स ऑन द इंट्यूशंस अबाउट रेडिएशन। हम क्या सोचते हैं रेडिएशन के बारे में, हम वल्नरेबिलिटी ह्यूमन बॉडी क्या वैसे किससे वल्नरेबल है एंड द वेरी नेचर ऑफ मैटर। ठीक है, पार्टिकल एक्सेलरेटर अलाउज फिजिक्स टू स्टडीज subatomic particles by speeding them up in a powerful magnetic fields। ठीक है, पार्टिकल एक्सेलरेटर क्या होता है जो फिजिक्स को अलाउ करता है सब एटॉमिक पार्टिकल्स स्टडी करने के लिए। ठीक है, सब एटॉमिक पार्टिकल्स होते हैं उनको स्टडी and then tracing the interaction that result from collisions। ठीक है, by delving into mysteries of the universe, colliders have entered by delving into the mystery of the universe, colliders have entered the zeitgeist and tapped the wonders and fears of our age। By delving into the mysteries of the universe, colliders have entered the zeitgeist and tapped the wonders and fears of our age। ठीक है, पार्टिकल एक्सेलरेटर क्या होता है? वो हेल्प करता है स्टडी को, पार्टिकल स्टडी डेल्व इनटू सब एटॉमिक पार्टिकल्स को पढ़ाई करने में हेल्प करता है। As far as by delving into the mystery of the universe, colliders have entered tap the wonders and fears of life. By delving into the mystery of the universe. As far as 2008, the Large Hadron Collider, operated by the European Organization for Nuclear Research, as far as 2008, LHC was charged with creating microscopic black holes. Was charged with creating microscopic black holes that would allow physicists to detect extra dimensions। As far back as 2008, a Large Hadron Collider operated by the European Organization for Nuclear Research, operated by with was charged with creating was charged with creating microscopic black holes that would allow physicists to detect extra dimensions। ठीक है, too many this sounds like a plot of a disaster science fiction movie। ठीक है, ज्यादातर को लगेगा ये तो साइंस फिक्शन मूवी चल रही है। इट सीम्स it came as no surprise when two people filed a lawsuit to stop LHC from operating lest it produce a black hole powerful enough to destroy the world। ठीक है, but physicists argued that the idea was absurd and the lawsuit was rejected। वो जिस स्टडी कर रहे थे क्रिएट माइक्रोस्कोपिक ब्लैक होल्स बना के, ठीक है, अलाउ फिजिकल एक्स्ट्रा डायमेंशन करने में सबको लगा मतलब ये साइंस फिक्शन चल रही है, और इट केम एज नो सरप्राइज व्हेन टू पीपल और मतलब दो ने तो वो क्या करा, वो भी कर दिया, लॉसूट भी फाइल कर दिया, वो बोल रहे इससे वर्ल्ड डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगा, बट फिर स्टार्ट करता आईडिया को कुछ नहीं। देन इन 2012 एलएचसी डिटेक्टेड द लॉन्ग सोट हिग्स बोसन। ठीक है, 2012 में एलएचसी ने जो बनाया था क्या फाइंड किया, हिग्स बोसन का नाम एक चीज है, a particle a particle needed to explain how particles acquire mass। ठीक है, with that major accomplishment LHC entered popular culture। It was featured on the album cover of Superior Collider by the heavy metal band LHC entered। इन्होंने हिग्स बोसन फाइंड किया जो फाइंड हेल्प करता है हमें नीड एक्सप्लेन हाउ पार्टिकल्स मास कैसे एक्वायर करते हैं। एंड विद दैट मेजर अकम्पलिशमेंट एंड पॉपुलर कल्चर, जैसे इन्होंने फाइंड किया पॉपुलर कल्चर देखने आ गए। ठीक है, It was featured on the album cover, ये album में आया by the heavy metal, by the heavy metal band Maker, and was a plot point in the US television series The Flash. Yet despite its accomplishment, yet again, despite its accomplishments and glamour, the world of particle physics is so abstract that few understand its implications, meaning or use. ठीक है, despite its accomplishment and glamour in the world of, ठीक है, ये बहुत सारे नहीं मिला, but the world of particle physics is so abstract. Particle physics बहुत मतलब बहुत कम लोग समझते हैं. Unlike a NASA probe sent to Mars, GERM research doesn't produce stunning, tangible images. ठीक है, इन्होंने खुद की अनलाइक नासा प्रोब इनटू द मार्स, जैसे अनलाइक नासा जीआरएम रिसर्च डोंट प्रोड्यूस tangible images. Instead, the study of particle physics is best described by chalkboard equation and sweeping lines called Feynman diagrams. ठीक है, डायग्राम की हेल्प में वो इंसिडेंट डिस्क्राइब करते हैं. Bohr, the Nobel laureate whose father Niels invented the Bohr model of the atom, and his colleague अगर मोहन, ठीक है, Bohr and his colleague even told as far as the physical existence of subatomic particles as anything more than a mathematical model. So ठीक है, ये डायग्राम के थ्रू इक्वेशंस, डायग्राम के इक्वेशंस के थ्रू इन्होंने तो ये भी बता रखा है कुछ उसका मैथमेटिकल मॉडल भी है, मैथमेटिकल मॉडल है, कोई इमेज है नहीं. ठीक है, ये इसने एक्सप्लेन ये कर रहा है, मतलब बहुत अकोमोडेशन मिली है, बस लोगों को समझ नहीं आता. So if you understand its main meaning, which returns us to our original question: what happens when a beam of subatomic particles traveling at nearly the speed of light meets the flesh of human body? Which returns to our original question. And ठीक है, हमारा original question ये इससे start हुआ था. We stuck our body inside. What would happen if we stuck the body inside a particle accelerator? पार्टिकल एक्सेलरेटर यही क्वेश्चन पूछा था ना, इससे स्टार्टिंग में यही आ गया, तो अब ये आ गया, इक्वेशन बता दिया, इसका मैथमेटिकल मॉडल बन रहा है. ठीक है, हम already perhaps because the realm of particle physics and biology are conceptually so far removed, it's not only lay people who lack the intuition to answer this question. ठीक है, मतलब ये बोल रहा है कि परहैप्स बिकॉज द रेलम ऑफ पार्टिकल फिजिक्स है. इसने किसी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा, अब ये बता रहा है उत्तर परहैप्स बिकॉज ऑफ द रेलम ऑफ ये पार्टिकल फिजिक्स है और बायोलॉजी है, सो कॉन्सेप्चुअली मतलब इनमें कुछ कुछ कॉमन, मतलब बहुत ही कम कॉमन है. ठीक है, तो ये बोल रहे हैं मतलब प्रोफेशनल किसी आदमी से तो उसे तो पता ही नहीं होगा आंसर, और प्रोफेशनल्स को भी नहीं पता. In a 2010 YouTube interview with members of the physics and astronomy faculty at the university, several academic experts admitted that they had little idea about what would happen if one were to stick a hand inside a proton beam at the ellipse. इन्होंने यहाँ पे कुछ आइडिया तो है. प्रोफेसर put it succinctly. That's a good question. Don't know is the answer. Probably be very bad for you. ठीक है. Professor Lawrence Gibbs was also cautious about drawing conclusions. ठीक है. Drawing conclusions. By the scales of energy we notice, it wouldn't be that noticeable, he said. Likely with a bit of British understatement. He said, likely with a bit of British understatement. Would I put my hand in the beam? I'm not sure about that. This is what I'm first of all. Such thought experiments can be useful tools for exploring situations and can't be studied in the laboratory. Such thought experiments can be useful tools for exploring situations. Thoughtful experiments, but can't be studied in the laboratory. Laboratory में नहीं हो सकते. Occasionally, however, unfortunate accidents yield case studies. ठीक है, laboratory में तो नहीं मतलब अब ये बता रहे कि accident हुआ है कुछ वो बता सकते हैं उसे. Opportunities for researchers to study scenarios. Unfortunate studies yield case studies. Opportunities for researchers to study scenarios that can't be experimentally induced for ethical reasons. ठीक, case studies have a sample size of one and no control group. But as the neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran has pointed out in Phantoms in the Brain, takes only one talking pig to prove that pigs can talk. ठीक है, एक ही केस स्टडी है, पर ये बोल रहे भाई इसने बताया प्रोफेसर ने एक ही एक पिक बोल दिया तो हम बता सकते हैं, पिक बोल सकते हो, वैसे हम एक्सप्लेन नहीं बता सकते हैं। तो वेव से ठीक है। On 13 September 1848, for example, an iron rod pierced through the head of the US railway worker, pierced through the head of the US railway worker, which profoundly changed his personality, offering early evidence for biological basis for personality. क्या वो हुआ था, इसमें क्या बता रहे हैं, क्या बता रहे हैं इसमें, एक एक्सीडेंट हुआ था, प्रोफाउंडली चेंज पर्सनालिटी, चेंज कर दी इसकी, ऑफरिंग अर्ली एविडेंस ऑफ बायोलॉजिकल बेसिस फॉर पर्सनालिटी। ठीक है, पर्सनालिटी offering early evidence of biological basis for personality, biological basis. And on 13th July 1978, a Soviet scientist named Antony Vygotsky stuck his head in a particle accelerator. On that fateful day, Vygotsky was checking malfunctioning of equipment on the U-70 synchrotron, the largest particle accelerator in the Soviet Union. When a safety mechanism failed and a beam of protons traveling at nearly the speed of light passed straight through his head. Then, it's possibly that at that point in history, no other human being had ever experienced a focused beam of radiation at such high energy. ठीक है। Although proton therapy, a cancer treatment that uses proton beams to destroy tumors, was pioneered before the 6th, the energy of these beams is generally not above 250 million electron volts. A unit of energy used for small one. Thus, you might have experienced the full growth of a beam with more than 300 times this much energy, 76 billion electron volts. Proton से हो मिल Proton radiation is a rare beast indeed. इसको हुआ था, ठीक है। Protons from the solar wind and cosmic rays are stored by Earth's atmosphere, and proton radiation is so rare in radioactive decay it was not observed until 1970. Familiar threats such as ultraviolet photons and alpha particles do not penetrate the body past skin unless a radioactive source is ingested. Russian dissident Alexander Litvinov, for instance, was killed by alpha particles that do not so much the particles that do not so much as penetrate paper. For instance, was killed by were killed by alpha particles that do not so much as penetrate paper when he unknowingly ingested radioactive polonium delivered by an assassin. But when Apollo astronauts, protected by spacesuits, were exposed to cosmic rays containing protons and even more exotic forms of radiation, they reported flashes of visual lights, a harbinger of what would welcome Gorgosky on the fateful day of his accident. A harbinger of what would welcome Gorgosky on the fateful day of his accident. According to an interview in Wired magazine, Alexander Gorgosky immediately saw an intense flash of light but felt no pain. The young scientist was taken into a clinic in Moscow with half his face swollen, and doctor expected the worst. Ionizing radiation particles such as protons wreak havoc on the body by breaking chemical bonds in the DNA. This assault on a cell's genetic programming can kill the cell, stop it from dividing, or induce a cancerous mutation. Cells that divide quickly, just as stem cells in bone marrow, suffer the most because the blood cells are produced in bone marrow. For instance, many cases of radiation poisoning result Many cases of radiation poisoning result in infection and anemia from losses of white blood cells and red blood cells, respectively. But unique to Bursky's case, radiation was concentrated along a narrow beam through the head rather than being broadly distributed from nuclear fallout, as was the case for many victims in the disaster or the bombing of Hiroshima. Particularly vulnerable tissues such as bone marrow and fat might have been largely spared, but for Vygotsky particular, but where the beam shot through head, it deposited an obscene amount of radiation energy, hundred of times greater than lethal dose by some estimates. Is still alive today. Half his face is paralyzed, giving one hemisphere of his eye a strangely young appearance. He is reported to be deaf in one ear. He suffered at least six generalized tonic-clonic seizures, commonly known as grand mal seizures. These are seizures most frequently depicted in film and television involving convulsions and loss of consciousness. For Kurosaki, epilepsy is likely a result of brain tissue scarring left by the proton beam. Left by proton beam. It has also left him with Fatimal or Epsilon seizure, far less dramatic starring spells during which consciousness is briefly interrupted. There are no reports that Bursky has ever been diagnosed with cancer, though that is often a long-term consequence of radiation exposure. Despite having nothing less than a particle accelerator beam pass through his brain, despite having despite having nothing less than a particle pass through, Burke's intellectual remained intact, and he successfully completed his doctorate after the accident. Burke Burkowski survived his accident, and as frightening and awesome as the inside of particle accelerator might be, humanity has thus far survived in every way.